right.
I wasn't expecting this big a crowd. I originally said, oh, I show up and talk to the media folks. So I put this together. I'm assuming that most folks don't know exactly what I do, so I wanted to show a quick reel of what we call a making of. It'll show kind of breakdowns about how some of the episode 8 stuff got put together. You'll see things where there's like gray renders that get wiped to full renders. You'll see green screens in the back. But I just want to show this is the only thing with sound that I'm going to show, but just to give you everybody some context as to what it is I do today. My particular job as a composite supervisor, it's kind of like making collages, you know, where you cut out something and you paste it over and you paste it over. So I do that for film. So we get explosions, we get backgrounds, we get actors, we get critters, and I put them all together. If I do my job right, it should look realistic to you. But anyway, let's watch this clip and then I'll talk. So I did all that myself. What I want to show that was just to show how extensive these things are. I'm one part of that. When I got to Lucasfilm years ago, it was a much smaller place, but now we have people in 4 offices in different countries, and there's probably 3,000 employees. But, and just wanted to put into context the stuff that I do. So I'm assuming that people, like go see Star Wars, or the film, but you don't know kind of the minutia behind it. Anyway, I came to Miami back because there's a film festival going on, and Kay Anderson is a friend of mine who went to school with her cousins back when, and I was expecting to do something more, well, I'm going to tomorrow do a more technical presentation from that, figuring you guys, whatever, technical stuff. So I'm going to tell you inspirational things. And I had a plan when I came out of St. John's that then quickly I went off plan. But I work at Lucasfilm, okay, and the clicker is not working. Rid of this guy. Okay. I work in particular as a division called ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, which we specialize in special effects. We were bought about 2012 by Disney, so now it's not really Industrial Light and Mickey, but that's why I work. Where I work is an odd place in that we do have droids in the hallway. Now it's more of a marketing thing. We've got studios over in England and Pinewood where they shoot the majority of the movies, but it's not out of the ordinary to see something for marketing like BB-8 rolling down the hallway, or we've had Wookiees in the hallway for one thing or another. We do a lot of motion capture stuff, so there are people kind of coming and going. It's not quite like it was when we had a full studio down in San Rafael, but it's not unusual to see these guys around. He's our head of human resources. That's what happens if you do bad things. Sometimes there's reactions to a movie. Anyway, so next, okay. So, show of hands, anybody know, see the film Forrest Gump? Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that a lot of the things that I have worked on that they kind of predate you. But I wanted to relate kind of my position so you have a sense of who I am in the world. I'm not a guy that hangs out with George Lucas. If he saw me, he goes, "Oh yeah, you want the kind of coffee I want?" Yeah, right. But I have worked directly with him on a few things, actually all the Star Wars movies in one form or another. I came there right after Jedi, but George is always famous for, oh, we're going to do a reissue, or there's going to come out on DVD, or we're going to do stereo. So I've touched every one of those movies up until Solo. I had nothing to do with Solo, but 2 of my kids got credits on that. They worked on that. So my family is the only one that's got credits on every one of the Star Wars movies. So George may take credit for coming up with the story, but I'm just saying my family is the one that has made it be successful. I say that with a little modesty, and I swear to God, you guys still have Jug, right? I think I still owe one because of things like that. Anyway. Okay, I'll go back. So, the Forrest Gump thing I wanted to make it, if you've seen that movie, Forrest plays this guy that just inadvertently keeps showing up and stuff. And it's just nature of his, and he rubs elbows with a lot of people, but it's just kind of his career. And where I work, there's the director at the top. Then I work for a visual effects supervisor. Now the director is in charge of the actors and sound and seeing it all the way through. The visual effects supervisor, his concentration is just that. We can have as many as 2,000 shots in a movie. Jedi only had like 365, just to give you a context over time how things have changed. But I work with an animation supervisor, a lighting supervisor, an effects, guys go boom, supervisor, and then I'm the composite supervisor. So we're like one step down from that. I'm in the room a lot. We will try out take time, I'll talk a little bit about that. I do at times have a lot of interaction with the director, but I just want to put it into context where I stand in that scheme of things. Now, all these people, I mean, Hollywood is based really on, we kind of like royalty. We've made those people our, people that we want to admire or want to be like or whatever. But everybody, when you get down to making these movies, and maybe you got a sense of that of the real, there's a lot that goes into this. And it's a lot of work day to day. All those people, the most famous of them, the publicity stuff is a small part of their day. They've got all the same problems you do about getting from here to there, raising the kids, doing all that sort of stuff. So I do end up nature that we can take a couple of years to do one of these things, getting to be friends with some of these folks. But again, I want to put it in context. I'm not like the fellow I had this morning, Mark, head of all of Pitney Bowles, that guy at the top. I'm kind of down a little bit, but I'm a lot like Forrest, and I've been involved, very fortunate to be in the room when a lot of things happen. And George was always great about pushing technology. When I got out of college, it was really expensive to make films, just in that everything was on film. You had to buy raw stock, you had to process it, you had to make prints, editing equipment was tough to come by because it was machines. And now, today, you guys have an opportunity, it costs you like nothing to send a copy of your movie put up on YouTube. So you have an opportunity to tell stories that I never could when I was younger. And I want to kind of come back around to that for you. Anyway, these were a couple of shots that I did on Forrest Gump. What we were doing was we found archival footage in where the one with Nixon, it was actually a black kid that was getting an award for, it was Boys Club, like Boys Ghost Club of the Year awards. We took him out and so the one below, Gary Sinise actually has legs. We had these little we call these little blue screen leggings on him, and I just chopped his legs off. And this particular thing, he's going to turn and jump into the water. The thing he's sitting on actually wasn't fully there. So when he turned, his actual legs went through the hole in the side of the boat. But I just want to point this out. These are not things, this is one type of effects that you would think. You would never think that Tom Hanks with Nixon is necessarily special effects, but I'd say half of what we do are things that you would not, does not have a critter in there, doesn't have something, some spaceship going on. Anyway, next one. So, when I was here, my parents really wanted me to be an engineer or a doctor. I pretty much fainted when we did the frog dissection thing, so okay, engineering, that's where I'm going. And at the time, Father Lotzi was the biology guy, and Father Sweeney was the chemistry guy. Now, I don't know if you guys still have it, I believe it's still going on, but there is a science fair every year. And then if you get past the local, then you go to the state. And the first 2 years that St. John's was involved, Tom Brockmeyer, the guy on the top, who went on to be a doctor and actually doing some good with the world, he won the first year. Tom Wakefield was in my class, but as a junior he won state. And this, I wouldn't say, well, this, let's say, upset Dr. Sweeney, because he had people in, he wanted to win. So that's why I call these guys were the unholy biological trio. They were our competition at the time. But Father Sweeney took Gunner's wing, so they go to the next slide. Thank you. There I am. Father Sweeney was really wonderful in particular because he's kind of one of the first people that was not related to me, that didn't have to love me, that believed in me. And I won third year. So then Father Sweeney was like, yeah, in your face. I think the big thing for me at that point, and actually Mr. Miller's in the background, he was put up with me. And he was a huge influence. And so many of the teachers back at that time, it's like become, in a certain way, your extended family. I didn't appreciate them as much when I was here as then when I left, and lessons that they taught along the way. But Father Sweeney was just huge for me. Anyway, next slide. So these are my kids. They all have gone through school. We're doing our U2 impression here. here in Dublin. I wanted to point them out because now I'm going to get into the inspirational part of things. First of all, college. College good. Go to college. I told my boys that, okay, you don't have to go to college. You can get some job, but it's going to be some pretty minimum wage sort of things. You can party with your friends for 4 years. In 4 years, nobody's going to be impressed. You're still going to have a pretty minimum wage job. Maybe you'll move up to assistant, associate, supervisor, or whatever, but still, it's going to be what it is. You go to college, live for 4 years. St. John's, I guarantee you, prepares you for college. I actually found college a little bit easier than St. John's was. But you get to party with your friends for 4 years, and at the end of that, you've got a college degree. And that's such a basic entrance level thing to check off the list of whether you're actually going to get a job interview. And it's a wonderful, wonderful time of your life to explore things. You get to meet a lot of folks that are from different backgrounds, but it really sets you up well. And it's a great thing to do in that time period. You're still kind of a knucklehead. You don't really have your act together until somewhere in your 20s. And you'll make lifelong friends there. You find the right sort of situation that can move you into, actually also pretty wonderful careers. Talking about colleges, I took a few classes at University of Detroit. It had to do with the yearbook thing. Actually got an appointment to the Air Force Academy. That was kind of my way of trying to get around the Vietnam draft. That didn't work out for me. I went to Purdue, got there, and it was like 90% guys. Okay, that's not going to work for me for the next 4 years. So I was switching kind of majors along in here. I went to University of Detroit for a while, tried different majors. My parents really wanted me to be an engineer because it made sense as far as getting a good job. At that point, there was a little all-women's college called Marymount's College, which my mom worked at. She said, why don't you come here and get your undergraduate because it didn't cost any tuition. Went there, was literally the last student they admitted, and they went out of business the next semester. There are probably still Ursula nuns that blame me for that. So my dad said, why don't you go to Ohio State because it's a massive college and you keep changing majors and they've got everything there. And so then you don't have to change college. And so I started in chem engineering, went through education, communications, and I came out with a cinema degree. And my dad said, well, good luck with that. It took about, well now I say, okay, there's a caveat to going to college and finish. I mean, you throw back in my face, well, Bill Gates didn't finish, or Mark Zuckerberg didn't finish, or Steve Jobs didn't finish, but they're pretty exceptional. So I just want to point out that I am aware there are people that did not do that. Anyway, so that was my basic thing with my guys. Go, try it, we'll support you, come out the other side, and then you'll be ready for the next step. You go to the next one. Next slide. Okay, I just threw this in here because, have you seen the DreamWorks logo? Mine's like before everything else. It's actually my son. Weird little, I've got a lot of these Forrest Gump sort of things. If you go to the next slide. So, there was a guy at that point, what was his name? I think it was Richard Clint. He was the art director when they started the, that studio. And he drew the moon, and his son was the model for that. Well, then they came to Ohio, or to ILM and said we wanted to do this logo that you see in front of all the movies. And his kid came, and we had made a mock-up of the moon for him to sit in, and they were going to do this thing called rotoscoping him out, so you couldn't really tell who it was, but that was going to be the deal. Well, his kid was too small. So, again, ILM, at that point, pretty small place, we maybe had 160 people, but I had 4 kids. I said, John, why don't you bring your kids in? One of them is going to be the right size for this thing. So that's how Zach got to the tallest one there, got to be the logo. And to this day, his friends will still give him a hard time if the movie that he's in front of is bad. They'll say it's his fault. Okay, next. Okay, now, Another thing, you're out of college, I really encourage you to travel, to get around. You know, the United States has got like roughly 325 million people. There's 7.4 billion people in the world. And so we are such a small part. And I read a statistic in Ohio, this is like the 42nd most diverse state in the United States. California is the most diverse state, but just to give you a sense, I grew up, here and pretty narrow. I had a nice family and friends and all that, but it's such a wide world out there. This is Labulu, and it's my wife. This is in Tanzania. Now, Labulu is a Maasai guy, and I'm throwing this up there as a kind of life story thing, just as an example. The Maasai still live in these mud huts. Our guide was saying they do this by choice. Labulu is like a political representative to about 300 Maasai. They've been there forever. Their whole thing is herding. They've got cows. He's got about, I think he said 3,000 or 4,000 cows, depending on how the lions are doing. But they do live what looks like to be a very primitive lifestyle. And each of these cows, even in Tanzania, is worth about $600. You do the math, and this guy is not poor. And they also have such a totally different society than we do. Labulu's got 6 wives. What he's doing here is making an offer for my wife to be another wife. Which, because he's in charge of 300,000 people, she was kind of like, I'm not making her a princess, but if she marries this guy, she'll be a princess. So it was a little bit of anyway. So, but the Maasai walk everywhere, and he said he would give me 100 cattle and 4 goats, and he did tell me that goats are kind of like change over there. So, but they walk everywhere. So now we're in his village. It's 60 miles from nowhere in the middle of Africa. His herds are out there. There are lions out there. It's like, okay, well, we don't want to kind of piss this guy off. We'll kind of go along with the idea. So yes, Labulu, if you bring those cows and deliver them to my house in San Rafael in California, then we'll talk about it. And so, plus is that they walk everywhere, so he's got to get from Tanzania, through Russia, across the Bering Strait, come down here, so let's show it. So, but my point is just that, and Labulu was great. We got to talk to his first wife, and she asked me how many wives I had, and I said, well, just one, and she thought that was cruel. She said that she felt it was too much work. And in their world, their lifestyle, men are pretty expendable because they go out with, they protect their herds. They go out, they are out there with the lions and every other bad thing that's out there. So it made sense as their society evolved to have this other type of lifestyle. And it was funny talking to her, to the first wife, and she's kind of in charge. She gets to decide, okay, this is going to be a second wife, this is going to be a third wife. They each have their own little house in the compound, and she asked my wife, said, well, if you get mad at him, what do you do? He said, well, he goes out and sleeps on the couch. And my wife said, well, what do you do? He said, well, I go send him to another wife. So a different way of thinking about the same problem. But I just tell that story because these people were really wonderful. They had a ton of kids that were being raised by this community. It is so different than Ohio. Let's put it that way. Okay, next one. Learn a language. This was from a project that I did in Wuhan, China. And for this company that's massive over in China. And we would go and they're very formal. And the guy that runs this company is worth like $38 billion. And he actually owns 5,000 movie theaters in the United States. He owns more movie theaters than anybody else in the world. So we're talking big, big time corporate. Well, we would go and have to do, and we're just doing media for this facility. We'd have to go to these meetings, and there would be an interpreter, and we would say our bit, and they would interpret to that. Now, everybody in his group had gone to school in the United States, so they all spoke English. And we would say something, we knew that they knew what we were saying, but they would say the thing in Chinese and come back. We had an interpreter, but if all 5 or 6 of them were talking at one time, she couldn't keep up with everything. Whereas if all 5 or 6 of us were talking, they totally knew what was going on. Now my boss at the time happened to be Armenian. And so we were talking about that. It's like, we know these guys speak English. We're at a huge disadvantage here in the thing. So he taught us a few Armenian phrases, figuring that, okay, these guys might know French, pretty easy. Guess that they might know Spanish, kind of the more major languages. They obviously know Chinese, but guarantee you none of them ever went to Armenia and studied that. So that was our comeback way to get around the fact that we did not know their language. That makes any sense. So learn a language. Armenian probably won't help you much. Chinese would be really good. They got 1.4 billion people over there, so there's a lot of opportunity for commerce. Anyway, next. Okay, this is me in a theatrical production. I had this was when I was just out of college. Maybe I was still in college here. This is my don't listen to people example. So I was up at this summer camp. We did, every year it was just a bunch of teachers. That's where they spent their summer. They hired a bunch of college kids to be the counselors. And in this area, they did this as a fundraiser for the local hospital. And we put on some musical. They decided among the people that were up there, and I thought I was a wonderful thespian. I really wasn't, even here. But I got one of the lead parts. You go to the next slide. Okay, so this is Paul Simon. Everybody know who Paul Simon is? Anybody? So Simon and Garfunkel. So maybe 5 years or 10 years before I got to Camp Starlight, same thing. They were doing the fundraiser, same idea for a play. Paul they were doing like Little Abner, and that there's one non-singing part in that play, and they gave it to Paul. So same guy that decided I could sing, decided that Paul Simon couldn't sing. And I put that's his thing in the park there, the concert in the park, there were 500,000 people. My point is, don't always assume that somebody's telling you something about yourself that's right. You go to the next thing. Okay, this is my yes, listen to people thing. That's Ron O'Brien and Greg Louganis. Ron O'Brien was, for a lot of years, the Olympic diving coach. When I was at Ohio State, I took a diving class because I wanted to just help teach the kids. I was at the camp that I was at how to dive. I figured, well, why not? It just so happened this was in between Olympic years, and Ron was the teacher. And I got through that, like it was full year, 3/4 sort of thing. And got to the end, and he goes, okay, John, you're a cinema major, you're not a phys ed major, you really don't have any talent as a diver. We would like you to not go to the next level, because now we start getting to a situation where there's going to be one-on-one coaching. And honestly, I didn't quite say it like this, but I was just taking up space at that point. But at the same time I was there, Greg Louganis was, he was there in practice. Now, Greg is like the greatest male diver that we've ever had. He won 4 gold medals, probably could have won more if Moscow had happened. Well, anyway, so, okay, I'll quickly go through some of these. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to a smaller company. So you're the first guy that could actually do the test. So my point there is, if you do go in, don't oversell yourself. Be ready to, back up what you're going to do. But anyway, next. this guy is Bill Tondro. No reason you should know him. Jennifer Gardner, you probably have seen her before. He's getting an Academy Award because he got it for motion control cameras, putting computers to cameras so that you could do repeats of shots. And that's basically how Star Wars, the original Star Wars, was made. They would have a model, they would shoot what we call a beauty pass, they would back it up, they would turn the lights on in the model and do another pass, and we would make these layers of things. Next one. So that's basically the setup. The thing hanging over them is the black thing hanging over them is the rig. That's the motion control rig. There's a camera on the end of that. The blue screen is how it got really cheap to do motion control, and it totally changed the way that we make movies now. Star Wars was a lot of guys doing, are trying to do exactly the same thing, and they were doing the same thing, and that was such a life, or industry-changing thing, so now we're going into, effects movies are huge. Before that, they were kind of a joke. You could see things didn't look real, and a good bit of my job is to know all the minutia behind it. And anyway, these motion control rigs allowed that to happen. So you felt the weight, you felt that the physics that are correct. Our worst critics are little kids that look at something and go, "Ah, it looks fake." And you may not know why things look fake, but your nature has gotten you so used to just looking around at stuff that you can pick up when we have not got something quite right. Next. You're gonna go next one. This is okay, another life lesson story. The guy before that was Jay Riddle, who I replaced at ILM because he was replacing, or he was going to take John Lasseter's place. John Lasseter was he was low guy in the totem pole when Pixar was still part of ILM. And long story short, and at that time, I told John, I said, well, Pixar was going off. George had gotten divorced, and they were settling up on their different assets, and they were going to do medical imaging. And John had come to ILM, and there had been a few projects that they had done that were had some animation in it, but the medical imaging thing was not anything that John was going to be involved in. So, at the time, I was in the optical department, and John had little kids like I had little kids, and I said, John, I could probably get you a job in there, and then you don't have to worry about it. So what are you going to do at Pixar? Because that were holding them up. There were things, we could put things out of focus, we could try to put little diffusion filters in it, but it really just didn't work. This is the first digitally fixed thing where they literally painted out the wires. Now, this particular thing is a kind of entry-level position as far as painting on plates. But at the time, there was no Photoshop, there was no we were literally making programs there that allowed you to do these things. Well, I remember sitting with George and the director when they saw this, and it was like, okay, this is like industry changing again for us, because now they don't have to worry about, we don't have to rig things like that. We can paint stuff out, and that is a direct correlation to where we are right now. Is there kind of at 2 o'clock? Can I keep going? Or? Yeah. This is an optical printer. That's the thing that I was working on. We'll skip to the next page. I got like 5 minutes. Oh, ballasts. necessarily have to be something that ends your career, right? So John, at the time, everything was project to project, which meant if you were a second assistant camera operator and there's no second assistant job for the next thing, you were laid off. Well, John was that. He got laid off, and that's his brother Tom. So John went off on his layoff at the time. His brother Tom was working up at, or a student up at Michigan working on his PhD, and in his time off, these are the guys that invented Photoshop. So going from, hey, I don't have a job, to, and the coolest thing to me about Photoshop is now it's like a verb. You say, hey, I'm going to Photoshop you up, you know, and everybody knows what you're talking about. But this, again, was a step on changing our industry where now on a computer we got out of the photochemical world, we're now into math world, and anything is possible, which is why I say now, there's nothing that I can't fake. I can get down to, you can look at it with a microscope and you could not tell that something we are doing is not real. There's one more slide I want to go to. Oh, so that's me with Biddy, kind of giving me some street cred, right? And that's total Photoshop, right? So this is Jennifer Lawrence. I won't have time to get all the way through this, which is another example about manipulation of images. When Darren shot the stuff, the guys, he wanted to shoot on 16, that's the bottom thing, but this is from Mother, and she's supposed to be Mother Nature, she's supposed to be really beautiful, so some of the effects stuff we do is taking plates, taking things that were not shot particularly well, and then making it look like top, so she looks much more wonderful up above than down below. But then again, it's just kind of an extension with the Photoshop thing. Okay, this is Joe Lettieri. This will be my last one. This is again just, hey, somebody can tell you you don't know what you're doing or disagree. He was going to be one of the effects supervisors on the prequels. And he and George got into a discussion or a disagreement about perspective and how they were going to shoot things. Every project is a real mix of different groups. You try to find personalities that you can work with well. And Joe is one of the nicest guys and one of the smartest guys I ever met, but he and George just kind of butted heads. And they both are obviously pretty strong-willed people, but so they decided Joe was not a good mix. They said, well, I can't really find something for you, so he had to leave ILM. Well, Weta picked him up, and in 2 years he had won his first Oscar. And he ended up with these guys, Spielberg and Peter Jackson. So again, my point, Joe thought he was at the pinnacle, working at the ILM thing, got laid off, didn't, grouse about it, found another opportunity, and he's now won 4 Oscars and actually gave him part of Weta. So he's like, those are 2 huge success stories about